Hello. Does this sound better? Hi, Chair. Hi, kittens. Hola, Neke. You still hear static for some reason. Well, it must be part of the rain at that point. I mean, if I turn the rain off, you don't hear static, because it's part of the rain sound, I guess. Because this is just thunder every once in a while will play, without any other sounds. Because I still have that on. So, yeah, that's not the static you're hearing. So it must be part of the raindrops. There's going to be a hiss of that because there's distant rain as well, which probably sounds like static. I really don't feel like sourcing other rain right now. This is free. Okay. I can turn it down a bit, but then I feel like it'll just be like... I feel like it would be too much then. I feel like having it up makes it audible as rain. But I do hear the kind of like the hiss sound of the background. Because I turned it up, I think it doesn't get processed in your brain as static as much. I think that I had the same conversation with Pixel half a week ago on the last chapter. Speaking of, that was the Swamps of Sadness. We went through. Artax and Atreyu entered. Only Atreyu left. Very sad scene where Artax sank into the swamp. And Atreyu found a huge-ass tortoise named Morla at the center of the Swamps of Sadness. And she told him that the only thing that'll save the childlike empress is a new name, and that the only person with an answer who may know is in the Southern Oracle, but that's thousands of miles away, and Atreyu would die before he got there, sort of thing. So, it's all hopeless, she said. So that's where we are, as far as where in the story we have left off, right before Chapter 4, Igramul the Many. And I took a picture of the front panel of this one, which this one has a giant green calligraphy, capital D. It has a spider in the middle of the D attacking a dragon beneath that is all sorts of scaled, and they're in the middle of fighting. So I just posted that over to Blue Sky, so that way you can take a look at it. Yay. I think I would probably need to get some water real quick before I get started. Because I had a bit of a sore throat issue in between stopping stream and restarting it. So I've been going through the water more, and I was ready with a whole thing of water, but I drank like most of it. So I need to go refill that. I don't think I need to mute. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. okay. Back with water. And I'm still going to give people a chance to kind of filter in over the next 6 or so minutes. Hello. Hey, Toot. There we go. Bleh. All right. So, question real quick before we get into... Hi, Dank. You ready for chapter 4? If it's too spidery and you need to balance, you let me know, and I will give you the rundown before we get into the next chapter. But if I hit this here, do you hear the sounds of them hitting me, or do you just see them hitting me? Do you hear it at all? You shouldn't. I don't have the sound routed that way. But I wanted to verify that that was the case. That you don't hear it at the moment. It's silent, yeah. Wonderful. It's not silent to me, which lets my ADHD ass know when things actually go off, which is good. But I didn't want it being part of the broadcast. I didn't want it being part of the VOD. So I have it hidden on a 5th track that's not even involved in the normal VOD. So all good. All good. Should be good. Should be. Because, yeah, I put it on monitor only, I think. But, yeah, I want to let people kind of filter in the next couple minutes. I'll be smoking a little. I'll be drinking some water. Having some honey. But, yeah, in between stopping my stream... the web fishing stream and then starting this one, I actually had to throw up. And I don't know if it's from, like, something bad that I ate or something else. I have no idea. But I feel okay now, so we're gonna keep on trucking, as it were. It's from seeing my pork, I get it. No, that pork looks so good. That looked so good. And I have a really high tolerance, too, so food-based edibles like that, well, I mean, edibles, blah, 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 but, like, meal-based edibles makes a lot of sense. I want to do brisket sometime soon. Brisket's so good. What? That interrupted the sound. Sorry about that. Funniest thing, the rain just stopped for a brief second. Crazy. I love brisket, though. You still have a lot from that harvest? Jeez. I've never gotten to grow any myself because having it go completely legal here, I didn't have, like, we didn't have the money or the space to be able to grow anything. So We just dealt with what we could get at dispensaries and such. But I would love to be able to grow. I don't think I'll have space for it. Which is a shame. Exactly. No, and I won't have space for a while. I'm going into a tiny house situation. We may have outdoor space, but I'm pretty sure that the dogs are going to need the outdoor space. So, I'm probably not going to be able to have the room. But I'm going to be ending up in Oregon, so Oregon's a good state for getting what you need for weed. Oh, for a year that you lived on a farm. That is nice, though. What? Excuse you? Is that where you are or something? That'd be crazy. Come smoke my weed, and yes, I'm Oregonian. Alright, well, we'll have to hang out after I'm out there, okay? I'll hit you up in DMs, okay? I would be glad to come smoke your weed and teach you how I do my edibles, too. We can share secrets. Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Alright. We're a good 15 minutes into the broadcast. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Does anyone have any questions about where we are in the story? We know we're at the end of the Swamp of Sadness, and we just talked to the big old tortoise. No, I'm not in Canada. I wish. God, no. No, I'm dealing without health insurance in the United fucking States. I am not Canadian. I just know people up there. All right. So, on we go, reading the Neverending Story. So we go to chapter 4, Igramul the Many. Dire hunger and thirst pursued Atreyu. It was 2 days since he had left the Swamps of Sadness, and since then he had been wandering through an empty, rocky wilderness. What little provisions he had taken with him had sunk beneath the black waters with Artax. In vain, Atreyu dug his fingers into the clefts between stones in the hopes of finding some little root. But nothing grew there, not even moss or lichen. At first he was glad to feel solid ground beneath his feet, but little by little it came to him that he was worse off than ever. He was lost. He didn't even know which direction he was going in, for the dusky grayness was the same all around him. A cold wind blew over the needle-like rocks that rose up on all sides, blue and blue. Uphill and downhill he plodded, but all he saw was distant mountains with still more distant ranges behind them, and so on to the horizon on all sides. And nothing living, not a beetle, not an ant, not even the vultures which ordinarily follow the weary traveler until he falls by the wayside. Doubt was no longer possible. This was the land of the Dead Mountains. Few had seen them, and fewer still escaped from them alive. But they figured in the legends of Atreyu's people, meaning they appeared in their legends. He remembered an old song. Better the huntsman should perish in the swamps, for in the Dead Mountains there is a deep chasm, where dwelleth Igramul the many, the horror of horrors. Even if Atreyu had wanted to turn back and had known what direction to take, it would not have been possible. He had gone too far and could only keep on going. If only he himself had been involved, he might have sat down in a cave and quietly waited for death, as green-skinned hunters did. But he was engaged in the great quest. The life of the childlike empress and all of Fantastica was at stake. He had no right to give up. And so he kept at it, uphill and down. From time to time he realized that he had long been walking as though in his sleep, that his mind had been in other realms, from which they had returned none too willingly. Hi, Waver, welcome in with your read and your friends. We are reading Bedtime Story. So the text switches back to Bastion in the real world. Bastion gave a start. The clock in the belfry struck 1. School was over for the day. He heard the shouts and screams of the children running into the corridors from the classrooms, and the clatter of many feet on the stairs. For a while, there were isolated shouts from the street, and then the schoolhouse was engulfed in silence. The silence descended on Bastion like a great heavy blanket and threatened to smother him. From then on, he would be all alone in the big schoolhouse. All that day, all that night, there was no knowing how long. This adventure of his was getting serious. The other children were going home for lunch. Bastion was hungry too, and he was cold in spite of the army blankets he was wrapped up in. Suddenly he lost heart. His whole plan seemed crazy, senseless. He wanted to go home that very minute. He could just be in time. His father wouldn't have noticed anything yet. Bastion wouldn't even have to tell him he had played hooky. Of course, it would come out sooner or later, but there was time to worry about that. But the stolen book? Yes, he'd have to own up to that too. In the end, Father would resign himself as he did to all the disappointments Bastion had given him. Anyway, there was nothing to be afraid of. Most likely his father wouldn't say anything, but just go and see Mr. Coriander and straighten things out. Bastion was about to put the copper-colored book into his satchel, but then he stopped. No, he said aloud in the stillness of the attic. Atreyu wouldn't give up just because things were getting a little rough. What I've started, I must finish. I've gone too far to turn back. Regardless of what may happen, I have to go forward. He felt very lonely, and yet there was a kind of pride in his loneliness. He was proud of standing firm in the face of temptation. He was a little like Atreyu, after all. The text switches back to green as we go back to Atreyu. A time came when Atreyu really could not go forward. Before him lay the deep chasm. The grandiose horror of the sight cannot be described in words. A yawning cleft, perhaps half a mile wide, twined its way through the land of the dead mountains. How deep it might be, there is no way of knowing. Atreyu lay on a spur at the end of the chasm and stared down into the darkness which seemed to extend to the innermost heart of the earth. He picked up a stone the size of a tennis ball and hurled it as far as he could. The stone fell and fell until it was swallowed up in the darkness. Though Atreyu listened a long while, he heard no sound of impact. There was only one thing Atreyu could do, and he did it. He skirted the deep chasm. Every second he expected to meet the horror of horrors known to him from the old song. He had no idea what sort of creature this might be. All he knew was that its name was Igramul. The deep chasm twisted and turned through the mountain waste, and of course there was no path at its edge. Here, too, there were abrupt rises and falls, and sometimes the ground swayed alarmingly under Atreyu's feet. Sometimes his path was barred by gigantic rock formations, and he would have to feel his way, painfully, step by step, around them. or there would be slopes covered with smooth stones that would then start rolling towards the chasm as soon as he set foot on them. More than once he was within a hairbreadth of the edge. If he had known that a pursuer was close behind him and coming closer by the hour, he might have hurried and taken dangerous risks. If that creature of darkness, which had been after him since the start of the journey, or it was that creature of darkness which had been after him since the start of the journey. Since then, its body had taken on recognizable outlines. It was a pitch-black wolf, the size of an ox. Nose to the ground, it trotted along, following Atreyu's trail through the stony desert of the Dead Mountains. Its tongue hung far out of its mouth, and its terrifying fangs were bared. The freshness of the scent told the wolf that its prey was only a few miles ahead. But suspecting nothing of his pursuer, Atreyu picked his way slowly and cautiously. As he was groping through the darkness of a tunnel under a mountain, he suddenly heard a noise that he couldn't identify, because it bore no resemblance to any sound he had ever heard. It was a kind of jangling roar. At the same time, Atreyu felt that the whole mountain above him was trembling, and he heard blocks of stone crashing down its outer walls. For a time he waited to see whether the earthquake, or whatever it might be, would abate. Then, since it did not, he crawled to the edge of the end of the tunnel and cautiously stuck his head out. And then he saw. An enormous spider web was stretched from edge to edge of the deep chasm. And in the sticky threads of the web, which were as thick as ropes, a great white luck dragon was struggling, becoming more and more entangled as he thrashed about with his tail and claws. Luck dragons are among the strangest animals in Fantastica. They bear no resemblance to ordinary dragons, which look like loathsome snakes and live in deep caves, diffusing a noxious stench and guarding some real or imaginary treasure. Such spawn of chaos are usually wicked or ill-tempered. They have bat-like wings which they can rise clumsily and noisily into the air, and they spew fire and smoke. Luck dragons are creatures of air, warmth, and pure joy. Despite their great size, they are as light as a summer cloud, and consequently need no wings for flying. They swim in the air of heaven, as fish swim in water. Seen from the earth, they look like slow lightning flashes. The most amazing thing about them is their song. Their voice sounds like the golden note of a large bell, and when they speak softly, the bell seems to be ringing in the distance. Anyone who has heard the sound will remember it as long as he lives, and tell his grandchildren about it. But the luck dragon Atreyu saw could hardly have been in a mood for singing. His long, graceful body, with its pearly pink and white scales, hung tangled and twisted in the great spider web. His bristling fangs, his thick, luxuriant mane, and the fringes on his tail and limbs were all caught in the sticky ropes. He could hardly move. The eyeballs in his lion-like head glistened ruby red. The splendid beast bled from many wounds, for there was something else, something very big, that descended like a dark cloud on the dragon's white body. It rose and fell, all the while changing its shape. Sometimes it resembled a gigantic, long-legged spider, with many fiery eyes and a fat body encased in shaggy black hair. Then it became a great hand with long claws that tried to crush the luck dragon. And in the next moment it changed to a giant scorpion, piercing its unfortunate victim with its venomous sting. The battle between the two giants was fearsome. The luck dragon was still defending himself, spewing blue fire that singed the cloud monster's bristles. Smoke came whirling through the crevices in the rock, so foul-smelling that Atreyu could hardly breathe. Once the luck dragon managed to bite off one of the monster's long legs, but instead of falling into the chasm, the severed leg hovered for a time in midair, then returned to its old place in the black cloud body. And several times the dragon seemed to seize one of the monster's limbs between its teeth, but bit into the void. Only then did Atreyu notice that the monster was not a single solid body, but it was made up of innumerable small, steel-blue insects which buzzed like angry hornets. It was their compact swarm that kept taking different shapes. This was Igramul, and now Atreyu knew why she was called the Many. He sprang from his hiding place, reached for the gem, and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Stop, in the name of the childlike empress, stop!" But the hissing and roaring of the combatants drowned out his voice. He himself could barely hear it. Without stopping to think, he set foot on the sticky ropes of the web, which swayed beneath him as he ran. He lost his balance, fell, clung by his hands to keep from falling into the dark chasm, pulled himself up again, caught himself in the ropes, fought free, and hurried on. At last Igramul sensed that something was coming toward her. With the speed of lightning, she turned about, confronting Atreyu with an enormous steel-blue face. Her single eye had a vertical pupil which stared at Atreyu with inconceivable malignancy. The text turns back to Burgundy as a cry of fear escaped Bastian. The text switches back to green as it continues. A cry of terror passed through the ravine and echoed from side to side. Igramul turned her eye left and right to see if someone else had arrived, for that sound could not have been made by the boy who stood there as though paralyzed with horror. The text switches back to Bastian, as he thinks. Could she have heard my cry? Bastian wondered in alarm. But that's not possible. The text continues in green, with Atreyu. And then Atreyu heard Igramul's voice. It was very high and slightly hoarse, not at all the right kind of voice for that enormous face. Her lips did not move as she spoke. It was the buzzing of a great swarm of hornets that shaped itself into words. A 2 legs, Atreyu heard. Years upon years of hunger, and now 2 tasty morsels at once. A lucky day for Igramul. Atreyu needed all his strength to keep his composure. He held the gem up to the monster's one eye and asked, "Do you know this emblem?" "Come closer, 2 legs," buzzed the many voices. "Igramul doesn't see well." Atreyu took 1 step closer to the face. The mouth opened, showing innumerable glittering feelers, hooks, and claws in place of a tongue. Still closer, the swarm buzzed. He took 1 more step, which brought him near enough to distinguish the innumerable steel-blue insects, which whirled around in seeming confusion. Yet the face as a whole remained motionless. "I am Atreyu," he said. "I have come on a mission from the childlike empress." "Most inopportune," said the angry buzzing after a time. "What do you want of Igramul? As you can see, she is very busy." "I want this luck dragon," said Atreyu. "Let me have him." "What do you want him for, Atreyu 2 legs?" "I lost my horse in the swamps of sadness. I must go to the southern oracle, because only Uyulala can tell me who can give the childlike empress a new name. If she doesn't get one, she will die, and all of Fantastica with her. You too, Igramul." "Ah," the face drawled. "Is that the reason for all the places where there is nothing?" "Yes," said Atreyu, "so you too know of them. But the Southern Oracle is too long a journey for a lifetime. That's why I'm asking you for this luck dragon. If he carries me through the air, I may get there before it's too late." Out of the whirling swarm that made up the face came a sound suggesting the giggling of many voices. "You're all wrong, Atreyu 2 legs. We know nothing of the Southern Oracle, and nothing of Uyulala. But we do know that this dragon cannot carry you. And even if he were in the best of health, the trip would take so long that the childlike empress would die in her illness in the meantime. You must measure your quest, Atreyu, in terms of not your life, but of hers." The gaze of the eye with the vertical pupil was almost unbearable. That's true, he said in a small voice. Besides, the motionless face went on, the luck dragon has Igramul's poison in his body. He has less than an hour to live. Then there's no hope, Atreyu murmured. Not for him, not for me, and not for you either, Igramul. Oh well, the voice buzzed. Igramul would at least have had one good meal. But who says it's Igramul's last meal? She knows a way of getting you to the Southern Oracle in a twinkling. But the question is, will you like it? What is that way? That is Igramul's secret. The creatures of darkness have their secrets too, Atreyu Two-Legs. Igramul has never revealed hers, and you too must swear that you'll never tell a soul, for it would be greatly to Igramul's disadvantage if it were known. Yes, greatly to her disadvantage. I swear. Speak. The great steel blue face leaned forward just a little and buzzed almost inaudibly. You must let Igramul bite you. Atreyu shrank back in horror. Igramul's poison, the voice went on, kills within an hour. But to one who has it inside him, it gives the power to wish himself in any part of Fantastica he chooses. Imagine if that were known. All of Igramul's victims would escape her. An hour, cried Atreyu. What can I do in an hour? Well, buzzed the swarm, at least it's more than all the hours remaining to you here. Atreyu struggled with himself. Will you set the luck dragon free if I ask it in the name of the childlike empress? He finally asked. No, said the face. You have no right to ask that of Igramul, even if you are wearing Arin, the gem. The childlike empress takes us all as we are. That's why Igramul respects her emblem. Atreyu was still standing with bowed head. Igramul had spoken the truth. He couldn't save the white luck dragon. His own wishes didn't count. He looked up and said, Do what you suggested. Instantly, the steel blue cloud descended on him and enveloped him on all sides. He felt a numbing pain in the left shoulder. His last thought was, to the Southern Oracle. Then the world went black before his eyes. When the wolf reached the spot a short time later, he saw the giant spider web, but there was no one in sight. There the trail he had been following broke off, and try as he might, he could not find it again. The text goes back to Bastian. Bastian stopped reading. He felt miserable, as though he himself had Igramul's poison inside him. Thank God I'm not in Fantastica, he muttered. Luckily, such monsters don't exist in reality. Anyway, it's only a story. But was it only a story? How did it happen that Igramul, and probably Atreyu as well, had heard Bastian's cry of terror? Little by little, this book was beginning to give him a spooky feeling. This is the end of chapter 4. I had forgotten that it was hornets instead of actual spiders. Which I suppose is not as bad as I was assuming it was going to be, but I'm glad that I gave you all the warning anyway. That was a short chapter. The next chapter is also short. We have 23 minutes. And I would like to get through the book before I move. Would you like the next chapter tonight? I was just about to say, we don't need the cliffhanger. If you would like, you all have earned the next one. We already have the next chapter unlocked. And honestly, all of you already keeping to the pace of everything, I don't mind doing a short, let's see, 1, 2, 3, like actual physical pages, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, 4 extra pages. I don't mind. I'm okay doing another one. I don't know if I can get 4 pages done in 22 minutes, but I do have 2 snoozes. Give me a moment. Let me hit those. We should be fine in that case. 1, 2. Let me see. Do I have a third one coming in? Yeah, in 20 minutes. Okay. 30 minutes. So 35 minutes. 35 minutes for 4 pages? I could do that. Yeah, okay. Alright. Okay. I don't like cliffhangers. I don't like short chapters. So, we will continue on with chapter 5, The Gnomics. Spelled like gnomes, Gnom, and then ICS at the end instead of E, the way that gnome would be. So it's gnomics. Let me take a picture of this real quick, because I'll need to show you all as well. This is one I want you to have the picture of ahead of time. And I know I'm kind of pushing this by trying to get this up onto Blue Sky. I hadn't considered I would be doing 2 chapters tonight, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Let me get this up. Alt text. These are things. Okay. Surprise, we're reading chapter 5 as well. Come here. Post. Okay. Done. So if you want to see the beginning of the chapter, the book plate has this big calligraphy E that has a man standing on the bottom of the E, and then the at the bottom is showing the gate, the front gate to the Southern Oracle, which is 2 sphinxes that are staring at each other. Alright. So chapter 5, The Gnomics, starts off. Ever so slowly, Atreyu awoke to the world. He saw that he was still in the mountains, and for a terrible moment he suspected that Yggdrasil had deceived him. But these, he soon realized, were entirely different mountains. They seemed to consist of great rust-red blocks of stone, piled in such a way as to form strange towers and pyramids. In between these structures, the ground was covered with bushes and shrubbery. The air was blazing hot. The country was bathed in glaring sunlight. Shading his eyes with his hand, Atreyu looked around him and discovered about a mile away an irregularly shaped arch, perhaps 100 feet high. It too appeared to consist of piled stone blocks. Could that be the entrance to the Southern Oracle? As far as he could see, there was nothing behind the arch, only an endless empty plain, no building, no temple, no grove, nothing suggesting an oracle. Suddenly, while he was wondering what to do, he heard a deep bronze-like voice, "Atreyu!" And then again, "Atreyu!" Turning around, he saw the white luck dragon emerging from one of the rust-red towers. Blood was pouring from his wounds, and he was so weak he could barely drag himself along. "Here I am, Atreyu," he said, merrily winking one of his ruby-red eyes. "And you needn't be so surprised. I was pretty well paralyzed when I was caught in that spider web. But I heard everything Yggdrasil said to you. So I thought to myself, she has bitten me too, after all. So why shouldn't I take advantage of the secret as well? That's how I got away from her. Atreyu was overjoyed. I hated leaving you to Yggdrasil, he said. But what could I do? Nothing, said the Luck Dragon. You've saved my life all the same, even if I had something to do with it. And again he winked, this time with the other eye. Saved your life, Atreyu repeated. For an hour? That's all we have left. I can feel Yggdrasil's poison burning my heart away. Every poison has its antidote, said the White Dragon. Everything will turn out all right. You'll see. I can't imagine how, said Atreyu. Neither can I, said the Luck Dragon. That's the wonderful part of it. From now on, you'll succeed in everything you attempt, because I'm a Luck Dragon. Even when I was caught in the web, I didn't give up hope, and as you see, I was right. Atreyu smiled. Tell me, why did you wish yourself here and not in some other place where you might have been cured? My life belongs to you, said the dragon, if you'll accept it. I thought you'd need a mount for this great quest of yours. And you'll soon see that crawling around the country on 2 legs, or even galloping on a good horse, can't hold a candle to whizzing through the air on the back of a luck dragon. Are we partners? We're partners, said Atreyu. By the way, said the dragon, my name is Falkor. Spelled Falkor. Glad to meet you, said Atreyu. But while we're talking, what little time we have left is seeping away. I've got to do something. But what? Have luck, said Falkor. What else? But Atreyu heard no more. He had fallen down and lay motionless in the soft folds of the dragon's body. Yggdrasil's poison was taking effect. When Atreyu, no one knows how much later, opened his eyes again, he saw nothing but a very strange face bent over him. It was the wrinkliest, shriveledest face he had ever seen, and only about the size of a fist. It was as brown as a baked apple, and the eyes in it glittered like stars. The head was covered with a bonnet made of withered leaves. Atreyu felt a little drinking cup held to his lips. Nice medicine, good medicine, mumbled the wrinkled little lips in the shriveled face. Just drink, child, do you good. Atreyu sipped. It tasted strange, kind of sweet and sour. Atreyu found it painful to speak. What about the White Dragon? He asked. Doing fine, the voice whispered. Don't worry, my boy. You'll get well. You'll both get well. The worst is over. Just drink, drink. Atreyu took another swallow, and again sleep overcame him. But this time it was the deep, refreshing sleep of recovery. The text goes back to burgundy-colored as the clock in the belfry struck 2. Bastian couldn't hold it in any longer. He simply had to go. He had felt the need for quite some time, but he hadn't been able to stop reading. Besides, he had been afraid to go downstairs. He told himself there was nothing to worry about, that the building was deserted, that no one would see him, but still he was afraid, as if the school were a person watching him. But in the end, there was no help for it. He just had to go. He set the open book down on the mat, went to the door, and listened with the pounding heart. Nothing. He slid the bolt and slowly turned the big key in the lock. When he pressed the handle, the door opened, creaking loudly. He padded out in his stockinged feet, leaving the door behind him open to avoid unnecessary noise. He crept down the stairs to the 2nd floor. The student's toilet was at the other end of the long corridor, with the spinach-green classroom doors. Racing against time, Bastian ran as fast as he could, and he just made it. As he sat there, he wondered why heroes in stories like the one he was reading never had to worry about such problems. Once, when he was much younger, he had asked his religion teacher if Jesus Christ had to go like an ordinary person. After all, he had taken food and drink like everyone else. The class had howled with laughter, and the teacher, instead of an answer, gave him several demerits for insolence. He hadn't meant to be insolent. Probably, Bastian now said to himself, these things are just too unimportant to be mentioned in stories. Yet for him, they could be the most pressing and embarrassing importance. He was finished, he pulled the chain, and was about to leave when he heard steps in the corridor outside. One classroom door after another was opened and closed, and the steps came closer and closer. Bastian's heart pounded in his throat. Where could he hide? He stood glued to the spot as though paralyzed. The washroom door opened, luckily in such a way as to shield Bastian. The janitor came in. One by one, he looked into the stalls. When he came to the one where the water was still running and the chain swaying a little, he hesitated for a moment and mumbled something to himself. But when the water stopped running, he shrugged his shoulders and went out. His steps died away on the stairs. Bastian hadn't dared breathe the whole time, and now he gasped for air. He noticed that his knees were trembling. As fast as possible, he padded down the corridor with the Spanish green doors, up the stairs and back into the attic. Only when the door was locked and bolted behind him did he relax. With a deep sigh, he settled back onto his pile of mats, wrapped himself up in his army blankets, and reached for the book. Your comments are hilarious, by the way. Dank says everybody poops except Jesus Christ. And Chute says Jesus pees out of both ends. Amazing, amazing additions to the stories. Fantastic. All right. There we go. The text goes back to green as we go back to Atreyu. When Atreyu awoke for the second time, he felt perfectly rested and well. He sat up. It was night. The moon was shining bright, and Atreyu saw he was in the same place where he and the white dragon had collapsed. Falkor was still lying there. His breathing came deep and easy, and he seemed to be fast asleep. His wounds had been dressed. Atreyu noticed that his own shoulder had been dressed in the same way, not with cloth, but with herbs and plant fibers. Only a few steps away there was a small cave, from which issued a faint beam of light. Taking care to not move his left arm, Atreyu stood up cautiously and approached the cave. Bending down, for the entrance was very, very low, he saw a room that looked like an alchemist's workshop in miniature. At the back, an open fire was crackling merrily. Crucibles, retorts, and strangely shaped flasks were scattered all about. Bundles of dried plants were piled on shelves. The little table in the middle of the room and the other furniture seemed to be made of wrought wood, crudely nailed together. Atreyu heard a cough, and then he saw a little man sitting in an armchair by the fire. The little man's hat had been carved from a root and looked like an inverted pipe bowl. The face was as brown and shriveled as the face Atreyu had seen leaning over him when he first woke up. But this one was wearing big eyeglasses, and the features seemed sharper and more anxious. The little man was reading a big book that was lying in his lap. Then a second figure, which Atreyu recognized as the one that had bent over him, came waddling out of another room. Now Atreyu saw that this little person was a woman. Apart from her bonnet of leaves, she, like the man in the armchair, was wearing a kind of monk's robe, which also seemed to be made of withered leaves. Humming merrily, she rubbed her hands and busied herself with a kettle that was hanging over the fire. Neither of the little people would have reached up to Atreyu's knee. Obviously, they belonged to the widely ramified family of the gnomes, though to a rather obscure branch. "Woman," said the little man testily, "get out of my light. You are interfering with my research." "You and your research," said woman. "Who cares about that? The important thing is my health elixir. Those two outside are in urgent need of it." Those two, said the man irritably, will be far more in need of my help and advice. Maybe so, said the little woman, but not until they are well. Move over, old man. Grumbling, the little man moved his chair a short distance from the fire. Atreyu cleared his throat to call attention to his presence. The two gnomes looked around. He's already well, said the little man. Now it's my turn. Certainly not, the little woman hissed. He'll be well when I say so. It'll be your turn when I say it's your turn. She turned to Atreyu. We would invite you in, but it's not quite big enough, is it? Just a moment, we shall come out to you. Taking a small mortar, she ground something or other into a powder, which she tossed in the kettle. Then she washed her hands, dried them on her robe, and said to the little man, Stay here until I call you, Engiwook. Understand? Yes, Urgel, I understand, the little man grumbled. I understand only too well. The female gnome came out of the cave and looked up at Atreyu from under knitted brows. Well, well, we seem to be getting better, don't we? Atreyu nodded. The gnome climbed up on a rocky ledge level with Atreyu's face and sat down. No pain, she asked. None worth mentioning, Atreyu asked. Nonsense, the old woman snapped. Does it hurt or doesn't it? It still hurts, said Atreyu, but it doesn't matter. Not to you, perhaps, but it does to me. Since when does the patient tell the doctor what matters? What do you know about it? If it's to get well, it has to hurt. If it stopped hurting, your arm would be dead. I'm sorry, said Atreyu, who felt like a scolded child. I only wanted to say, that is, I wanted to thank you. What for? Said Urgel impatiently. I'm a healer, after all. I've only done my professional duty. Perhaps besides Engiwook, that's my old man, saw the glory hanging on your neck. So what would you expect? What about Falkor? Atreyu asked. How's he getting along? Falkor? Who's that? The White Luck Dragon. Oh, I don't know yet. Took a little more punishment than you. But he's bigger and stronger. So he ought to make it. Why not? Needs a little more rest. Where did you ever pick up that poison? And where have you come from all of a sudden? And where are you going? And who are you in the first place? Engiwook was standing in the mouth of the cave. He listened as Atreyu answered Urgel's questions. When Urgel opened her mouth to speak again, he shouted, Hold your tongue, woman, now it's my turn. Removing his pipe bowl hat, he scratched his bald head and said, Don't let her tone bother you, Atreyu. Old Urgel is a little crude, but she means no harm. My name is Engiwook. We're the well-known Gnomics. Ever hear of us? No, Atreyu confessed. Engiwook seemed rather offended. Oh, well, he said, apparently you don't move in scientific circles. Or someone would undoubtedly have told you that you couldn't find a better advisor than yours truly if you're looking for Uyulala and the Southern Oracle. You've come to the right address, my boy. Don't give yourself airs, Urgel broke in. Then she climbed down from her ledge and, grumbling to herself, vanished in the cave. Engiwook ignored her comment. I can explain everything, he went on. I've studied the question all my life, inside and out. I set up my observatory just for that. I'm in the last stage of a great scientific work on the Oracle. The Riddle of Uyulala, solved by Professor Engiwook. That's the title. Sounds all right, doesn't it? To be published in the very near future. Unfortunately, a few details are still lacking. You can help me, my boy. An observatory? Asked Atreyu, who had never heard the word. Engiwook nodded, and beaming with pride, motioned Atreyu to follow him. A narrow path twined its way upward between great stone blocks. In some places, where the grade was especially steep, tiny steps had been cut out of the stone. Of course, they were much too small for Atreyu's feet, and he simply stepped over them. Even so, he had a hard time keeping up with the gnome. Bright moonlight tonight, said Engiwook. You'll see them all right. See who? Atreyu asked. Uyulala? Engiwook only frowned and shook his head. At last they came to the top of the hill. The ground was flat. but on one side there was a natural stone parapet. In the middle of this wall there was a hole, obviously the work of Nomian hands. And behind the hole, on a stand made of root wood, stood a small telescope. Enjiwuk looked through the telescope and made a slight adjustment by turning some screws. Then he nodded with satisfaction and invited Atreyu to look. He put himself on a level with it. To put himself on a level with it, Atreyu had to lie down on the ground and prop himself up on his elbows. The telescope was aimed at the great stone arch, or more specifically at the lower part of the left pillar. And beside this pillar, as Atreyu now saw, an enormous sphinx was sitting motionless in the moonlight. The forepaws on which she was propped were those of a lion. The hindquarters were those of a bull. On her back she bore the wings of an eagle, and her face was that of a human woman. In form, at any rate, for the expression was far from human. It was hard to tell whether the face was smiling, or whether it expressed deep grief, or utter indifference. After looking at it for some time, Atreyu seemed to see abysmal wickedness and cruelty. But a moment later he had to correct his impression, for he only found unruffled calm. "Don't bother," he heard the gnome's deep voice in his ear. "You won't solve it. It's the same with everyone. I've observed it all my life, and I haven't found the answer. Now for the other one." He turned one of the screws. The image passed the opening of the arch, through which he only saw the empty plain. Then the right-hand pillar came into Atreyu's view. And there in the same posture sat a second sphinx. The enormous body shimmered like liquid silver in the moonlight. She seemed to be staring fixedly at the first, just as the first was gazing fixedly at her. "Are they statues?" asked Atreyu, unable to avert his eyes. "Oh no," said Enjiwuk with a giggle. "They're real live sphinxes, very much alive. You've seen enough for now. Come, we'll go down and I'll explain everything." He held his hand in front of the telescope so that Atreyu could see no more. Neither of them spoke on the way back. And there's the end of the second very quick chapter. So, you can see why I wanted to get through two of them tonight, because short chapters, if I can get through both of them in, an hour? I think it's fair to do both of them. I mean, to be fair, I talked my mom into doing stuff like that when I was a kid. I was like, "That chapter was too short. I'm not sleepy, Mom. Can you just do the next one?" So yeah, that puts us at chapter 6. The 3 Magic Gates. But we're not reading that tonight. We're going to read that on Tuesday. Welcome in, Esty, by the way. And thank you for the bit serenaded. What did you all think of the 2 chapters? Now Atreyu's all the way down at the bottom of the world. At the Southern Oracle. Where he had no idea he could even get to. Move this a little. So yeah, that is it for tonight. Tuesday the 11th, we will be reading the next chapter. Yeah. The movie is... I would say the movie is probably like 15% of the book. If you're counting all the movies, because there was multiple Neverending Stories movies. If you count all of them, they maybe get 50 to 60% of the book between all of them. So the book is just so much more filled with amazing sort of like descriptions and ideas and such, and like concepts to consider. It's just really amazing. So I've been wanting to share this with like the community for a while. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's the next chapter. We do that Tuesday. So you get to experience. Let's see, do we... I think it's the gates and then the oracle? Let me see. Let's see, we're at page 78. 3 magic gates. Well, that's a longer chapter. Takes us to 93. It's 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's 7 pages. So yeah, that'll be good. And then, yeah, it looks like Southern Oracle is after that. Oh, yo, yeah. Then we get to a chapter that you don't get in any of the movies. Oh, okay, yeah. We're actually not far from the end of what the actual first movie kind of ends at. Which is funny, because there's a whole second half of this book. So, I'm really looking forward to showing you the rest of the fucking story. I can't wait. I'm excited to have you here and reacting and stuff. All of the stuff that normally makes noises, I still kind of hear in my ear, but I have it turned all the way down. And I don't have it going to the VODs or anything, so that way it, I still know when you do redeems and such. Well, at least it doesn't end where you think it ends. Because remember in the story, it does the whole, like, flying scene at the end. I'll just say, I don't want to, like, spoil it for anyone who's listening to this and hasn't watched the movie. I do have some people who aren't aware of the Neverending Story movie's end. Which is perfectly fine. The book's fine standalone. But yeah, the last flying scene in the movie, if you remember that, that sort of thing is the middle of the book. It actually combines the middle and the end, but no, they skip like half the book. So I'm so excited to share that with you. Oh, Tuesday can't come fast enough for that. Tomorrow will be golf. We're gonna do golf with friends tomorrow. Why do I imagine Falcor's voice being Lois with that? Veda, you're too heavy. It's visually Falcor, but it's her voice coming out of Falcor. What? That's ridiculous. Oh, it's amazing. Alright. It is time for me to rest my voice. And I'm glad I didn't have to leave you on a cliffhanger. Because that's a sucky cliffhanger. To be like, oh, he's all poisoned. He has like an hour to live. Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll be live tomorrow. Not with DJ Max like normal for a Sunday. But it will be golf with friends. And we'll just chat for a bit when I first start up. And then when we get enough people to start, we'll go ahead and play. You're welcome. I'm so happy to give Falcor time. Falcor's my favorite. Every time I play Terraria, the dragons that go, like the air dragon things that go up in the air, I always call them Falcors. Yeah. I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully morning. but maybe afternoon. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. And as usual with these streams, I'm not going to be rating out. I'm just be ending like this. Saying thank you. And I appreciate everyone coming out and listening. And thank you to everyone who's listening on the VODs. I'm going to be uploading today's stream and this stream right now. I'm going to go upload those before I sleep. And then I'll go to sleep. And then I'll wake up and I'll stream again. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good night.